Hello all, welcome to Wednesday Wisdom. We're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 7, just pulling a few thoughts from that in the time that we have. Do not judge, let me read it. Matthew 7 verse 1 to 5. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way as you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Now, many people come to this verse and they don't explore the whole passage, verses 1 to 5, and they look at do not judge, or you too will be judged. And for in the same way as you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. And they say, right, that means we do not judge. But is the passage saying that? Well, no, not really. What it's saying is that we should judge, but not in a hypocritical way. Let's have a look. Why do you look at the speck, verse 3, of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? Now, if I had a plank in my eye, of course that's not going to happen, but it's just a sort of hyperbole of Jesus making it sound more ridiculous than it actually is. But actually it is ridiculous, because we all have a default so often to focus on the faults of others and being totally blind to our own faults. We have blind spots in our characters, and we need other brothers and sisters to very kindly point them out to us, but not in a hypocritical way. And this is the problem. We forget or are blinded by our many faults, and we seek to remove somebody else's perhaps smaller fault without addressing, first of all, our own sins, faults, attitudes, prejudices. So Jesus isn't saying do not judge per se. In fact, if you scroll down and you look at the rest of this is 2/3 of the way into the Sermon of the Mount by Jesus, you will see that he says, make a judgment about false prophets. Verse 15, watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. In other words, you've got to make a judgment by looking at who they are, what they teach, and how they behave will give you a clue as to whether they are genuine Christians or wolves in sheep's clothing. That's a judgment. So Jesus never says don't judge. He says you've got to judge in the right way. You've got to make the right evaluation. The thing is, you see, that your brother in this passage, 1 to 5, does have a problem. He's got a speck in his eye. Now, if you've ever got a speck in your eye, and I have on a number of times, because I've got no eyelashes and no eyebrows, so I get a lot of specks in my eye and it hurts. And it makes your eyes water, and sometimes you can't do anything else until someone's removed that speck in your eye. It could be an eyelash, it could be a fly that's flown in, it might be a bit of grit. Whatever it is, even that tiny speck stops you doing what you want to do. So our brother in this passage does have a need. Even the one who has the speck in the eye has a need. However, and we are therefore called to go to our brother, and this is Christian on Christian, not really Christian and unbeliever, and to address that with them, but never before we have examined ourselves, never before we have thought of our own issues and prejudices. And particularly, I'll give you another stupid example. If I'm drunk or I drink a lot and I'm telling you not to get drunk and drink, I'm a hypocrite. I have no place to tell you what to do if I'm not doing it myself. That's also what this passage says. That is hypocritical. And also, sometimes when we're blind to our own faults because we've got this log in our eye that other people can see, but we can't, and all we want to do is focus on our brother, we can come across as very harsh because we are blind to our own sins and we home in on our brother's other just one sin. And therefore we become harsh, we become very judgmental, we appear to be better than our brother. All that kind of judgment is wrong. All those motives are wrong. So really Jesus is saying, if you're going to make a judgment, you need to examine yourself first, judge yourself first, confess your sin in that area first, and then you will see clearly to address the sin in your brother's or sister's life too. And we do need help. I need help, you need help. But we don't want harsh criticism. We don't want a condemnatory spirit. We don't want a holier than thou spirit from our brothers and sisters that are seeking it to put us on the right track, as it were, or if they can see that we're stumbling in a particular way because we have this speck that's irritating us in our eye. But we don't want that kind of attitude, do we? That will put the barriers up. That will never help. And it actually says in our passage, for in the same way as you judge others, you will be judged. You judge harshly, you'll be judged harshly. And with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. And there goes the old adage, doesn't it, that if you point the finger at someone, you'll have 3 or 4 pointing back at you if you're guilty of the same thing. It's like sometimes someone will say, Simon, don't speak with your mouth full. But 2 minutes before, they've been speaking with their mouth full. Why should I take any notice of that? That's the kind of point that Jesus is making. It's a hypocritical approach. We have to really get this, don't we? Our brothers needs help. But we're reminded in Galatians, and it tells us how to give that brother help. And yes, we're making a judgment, but it's not to condemn our brother. It's to help him with the thing he is struggling with, or she is struggling with. That's what this is about. It's a loving thing to do. It's far more loving to help our brother who's struggling with something in particular than to ignore it for the sake of what our society says, non-judgmentalism. Now, we must do it in the right way. Galatians says, if your brother is struggling with a sin, come alongside him and seek to restore him gently. That's the way of Jesus, isn't it? It's interesting, in Mark 8, I think it is, and we often see this passage, and it's a very good explanation of the sort of example that Jesus is giving in here in Mark 7, 1-5, where the hypocritical Pharisees and Jews are seeking to stone to death this woman caught in adultery. They don't say anything about the man, just the woman who's been caught in adultery. And they all gather around her and they're about to stone her. And Jesus says, let him without sin cast the first stone. And each one of them slowly, because they're being forced to self-examine, and they see the hypocrisy in their own hearts, and they drop the stones, and only Jesus is left with the stone. He is the one that may judge. He is the one that can judge. And the dogs just come in. Anyway, he comes alongside. He says, do you see anybody that will condemn you? And she says, no, sir. And he says, neither do I condemn you, but go and sin no more. You see that? It's not condemnatory, but it is a judgment. You're sinning, don't do that anymore. So, just in summary, let us remember this. It's not that we shouldn't judge or evaluate, and we certainly must help our brothers and sisters who are struggling. But first, examine yourself, and I examine myself. Oh, goodness knows we've got many faults. Come before the Lord, ask him to cleanse us. Then we can get rid of that blind spot and that big log that is stopping us seeing clearly to assist our brother with the small speck he's got in his eye. Amen.